Okay, let's just do a quick review of integers. If you remember, when we're adding, if they're the same sign, it just gets bigger. You just keep it that sign. If you add positive, the answer is positive. If you add a bunch of negatives, the answer is negative. It's just more negative. However, it becomes different when we have more positive than there is negative. If we have positive and negative, yeah, the answer is positive, but it's not nearly as much. In other words, you subtract them. You subtract them. Same thing goes here. Right? There's more negative, so the answer is negative, but you have to subtract it. Subtract the positive from the negative. So these two you subtract, but if they're the same sign, then you just add them together. And when adding integers, remember we talked about zero pairs, a plus and a minus, cancel each other out. And so, for example, in this case right here, you have one positive and four negatives. Well, obviously, you subtract them. 4 take away 1 is 3, but there's more negative. But now if they're the same sign, they're both negative, you just add them up. 3 negatives and 2 negatives makes 5 negatives. Look at here. These are different signs, so you subtract. 5 take away 1 is 4, but there's more positive. Right? There's 4 positive. So that's how you should be thinking when you do these problems. What do you have more of? Positive or negative? And if they're different, you just subtract. If they're the same, you would add them. Then we went into subtracting integers. And it's really not subtracting because what you're doing is you're just changing it to an adding problem. And so minus 4 is just adding a negative 4. You add the opposite. And we already know how to add problems. It came a little tricky when we came to problems such as this. And this is where we are subtracting a negative, right? It's just like adding, you add the opposite. You add a positive 3 instead of minus a negative 3. And this is the same thing if you take away cold, you're making it hot. So those are the things to consider. And also same thing here. It's like a big plus. Remember we talked about that? So take away a negative is like adding a positive. It's making it warmer. Taking away cold is making it warmer. But if you have a hot and a cold, subtract them. There's more cold. It's negative. It's negative 6. And then we did the hot versus cold problems. Then we did multiplying and dividing. And multiplying and dividing, 2 negative signs cancel. So in this situation, there's 1 negative, so the answer is negative. You just multiply it. 3 times 2 is 6, but there's 1 negative, so it's negative. Over here, there's 2 negatives. 3 times 2 is 6, but 2 negatives cancel. 2 negatives cancel. Same thing with division. 8 divided by 4 is 2, but there's 1 negative. 8 divided by 4 is 2, but there's 2 negatives. They cancel. And that's all you need to know from multiplying and dividing. That's all you need to remember. Real quick, integer rules. So if they like minus 4 is the same thing as adding negative 4. And if they're the same sign, you just add them up. If they're different signs, such as this, you would just subtract them. 5 take away 2 is 3, there's more positive. 8 take away 6 is 2, there's more negative, so it's negative. And then one thing I always remember is I just kind of remember when I'm subtracting a negative, it's like a big plus. It's actually adding 4 instead of minusing negative 4. And that's how I remember it. Then we did a combination of problems. And some of these, so we did division, combination, and some of these we had to change. We had to use the rules of Pemdas, right? And it's multiply or divide, add or subtract, whichever comes first.